and welcome to Sport is Female. Yes, you heard right, sport is female. My name is Refilwe and I'm a sports enthusiast and a broadcaster. I'm passionate about my fellow females shattering those glass ceilings. So this podcast aims to not only talk about female athletes, but to celebrate them. Sport is Female, which is a global platform, shines a light on women's sport, and it gives these females with superhuman strength a voice to not only tell their story, but to inspire the next generation of female athletes. All right, it's time for the review and analysis of the big sporting news of the week. I am honored to be joined by my fellow female in the industry who is also shattering glass ceilings. She has been in the industry for over 7 years. She's a journalist, a sports reporter, and an anchor. I'm honored to welcome Tholakele onto the podcast. Hey, Thola, welcome.
Hey, Refilwe, thank you so much.
Cool. So which big sporting stories caught your eye this week?
I think you can't look beyond the season closing in England with the FA Cup final. It was quite an exciting one because both teams had so much to play for. Mikel Arteta, he got the job with the Gunners mid-season, having made the step up from Pep Guardiola's assistant to manager of a club that he had captained to FA Cup success. And then you look at Frank Lampard, who made the jump as Derby County manager, and now he's coaching a team that he also played for during his days. So the story going into it was already exciting because both of them were looking for their first trophy in management. I think Arsenal, you realize now just how dependent they are on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He's braced securing them that 2-1 victory over the Blues. He hasn't signed a new contract. That will be concerning because I think the one thing you look at for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he had said he had left Borussia Dortmund to win trophies. Yes, he's won the FA Cup final with Arsenal now, but is there really more to this Arsenal side? Because we already see David Luiz, yes, he put in a great performance last night, but he's so on and off when it comes to his performances with this team. Do they have the likes of Alexandre Lacazette? Are they really scoring enough goals to complement the talents of Aubameyang? How much work do they need to invest in the squad? Once again, there's questions about Mesut Ozil and whether he's coming or going because he was left out completely of the side. But I think Mikel Arteta, he'll look at himself and the fact that, hey, 6 months into the job, he's got a trophy in the cabinet, which is something a lot of managers can't say. You look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's not something that he can say as Man United manager. But for them, a wonderful capping of the season. They had finished 8th in the Premier League, which was worrying for a lot of their fans. But at least now they get some sort of European football because they go into the Europa League. And for Chelsea, I guess there will be questions about Frank Lampard's side. I think already in the league, we had seen how they possibly mentally fragile, if that's the right term to use, because they were in 3rd place for so long in that race for Champions League positions, but kind of only got in that last spot. They ended up finishing 4th. Going into this final against the Gunners, they would have been favourites to win it because, hey, it's Chelsea. They kind of have the big names and the match winners that a lot of people would argue that Arsenal don't have because they're so reliant on Aubameyang. But also they had 2 very key injuries in Cesar Azpilicueta and Christian Pulisic, both going down with hamstring injuries. But I think those are things that Frank Lampard as a manager must learn. You are going to have times when your star players are hobbling off the pitch. What are you doing behind the scenes and asking the players that are coming on to replace them to do?
Maybe he needs to evoke the spirit of Jose Mourinho into these young boys, the spirit of passion, because as much as we fault him for, his faults, when Jose Mourinho was at Chelsea, you had the likes of Didier Drogba, John Terry, and Frank Lampard himself, where they were a team of winners.
That is true, but I also think you must look at this team and you say, do they have those quality players? Yes, they've signed Timo Werner, the there's speculation about Kai Hersovitz coming to join them. But do they really have the Didier Drogbas that were willing to leave everything out on the pitch at the end of 90 minutes? From the goalkeeper side of it, you look at the fact that Kepa's kind of in and out. There are rumors about him being replaced by Jan Oblak. There's always these speculations about that goalkeeper, especially because remember when Maurizio Sarri, he wanted to take him off in that what is it called now, the Carabao Cup, in the final of that, and Kepa didn't want to get taken off, and he wanted to take the penalty. He wanted to be in goal for the penalty shootout. Chelsea ended up losing. So you've got players that unfortunately are doing the same thing that Frank Lampard, when he was a player, and some of his teammates used to do, where they kind of felt they knew more than the manager. And I think in a way, it's kind of coming back to bite Frank Lampard, where when these players don't feel up for the match, they really don't do anything. They don't push themselves beyond the limits. For them, it's either they play for the manager or they don't. It's not as important for them to win that game or to honor themselves and the badge as it was when, I guess, the likes of John Terry and Didier Drogba, because that was a side that could coach themselves most days. And that's why a lot of managers didn't stick around, because those players knew their best formations. They knew what they needed to do. All they needed was the right man to kind of give them a good halftime talk to inspire them to do more. But them as a group believed in themselves. You do wonder, do these current Chelsea stars have that same motivation? And also, you look at the Williams situation, where his contract, another player whose contract is kind of up in the air, whether he'll stay or he'll go. Those things also factor in, because when it comes to those last weeks of the season, we know how agents are. They're out in the media, they're talking things up. All of a sudden, a manager is so focused on trying to convince this one player to stay that the rest of the team is kind of going, but aren't we focusing on matters on the pitch? And I think those distractions are something that Frank has to deal with if he's going to build this Chelsea side into his image.
Yeah, well, we can only look ahead to the Champions League, which is in August. I think the 8th of August is their next game.
Yes, it is. They're taking on Bayern Munich, which is always going to be interesting. This is the Bayern Munich side that steamroll every opposition, and that's putting it nicely, because their players they waltzed to an 8th Bundesliga title, then repeated that success by winning the Pokal Cup. They've had a bit of a break, 2-3 weeks off. We've seen the likes of Leon Goretzka, the likes of Robert Lewandowski. They're very confident at the moment. Robert Lewandowski, he ended up being the top scorer this season for the second season in a row. So he will be wanting to make sure that, okay, now that we've done what we've needed to do at home, let's prove ourselves to be European giants once again. And I think you can't look past Bayern Munich when it comes to the Champions League, and them possibly walking away as winners.
Possibly. All right, let's move to local football. Sundowns signings Busiso Vilakazi on a 4-year deal.
This will be good times for Patrice Motsepe, Pitso Mosimane, and the whole coaching staff at Mamelodi Sundowns, because I remember when Coach Pitso had agreed his new 4-year contract in early March, if I'm not mistaken, where after months of speculation, he had agreed to stay. And he had said, okay, now that my future is sorted, the aim is now to build, not so much to win the ABSA Premiership, but for them to secure a second star in the CAF Champions League. So to secure the talents that is from George Malulega to Lesidi Kapinga to now Spusiso Vilakazi committing to say he's going to stay in Mamelodi Sundowns, you realize just how serious this team is in creating not just a good starting 11, but a squad that is able to compete domestically and on the continent, because that's always been the one thing Coach Pitso has always emphasized, the workload that comes with wanting to be African champion, but also still wanting to perform against the likes of Wits, Chiefs, or an Orlando Pirates. So he's trying to make sure that he's got roughly a dangerous squad of 24 players who are at the peak of their powers and are hungry to win.
Absolutely. And what strikes me with this Sibusiso Vilakazi story is that, as you were saying, it was beginning of March when Pitso signed his 4-year contract, where Patrice Motsepe then came out and said, when you have quality staff members like Pitso, you treat them well. And how do you treat them well? You compensate them well. So that's, I think, why a team like Sundowns is doing so well. I mean, they are one of the best teams in Africa, one of the best teams in the Premier Soccer League. So it's a win-win situation where the players will play well and then they will get rewarded with in monetary value and also in with contracts.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of them, they also look at the fact that I think you look at the George Malulega signing where people are going, oh my goodness, he's in his 30s. What would he want to do at Sundowns? Like, money aside, he will get to play matches where this team is in with a bigger chance of winning trophies than possibly Ed Kaiser Chiefs. Because yes, Chiefs right now are in the running for the league, but it's taken them 4 years to get to this point. When was the last time Mamelodi Sundowns were not involved, whether it be in the latter stages of a Nedbank Cup, a Telkom knockout, or an MTN 8? This is a team that lives off that desire of constantly wanting to be successful. So that hunger trickles down from the coach into the players. So I think a lot of opposition players are looking at the success that the Sundown side have at the moment and saying to themselves, wait a minute, if the opportunity comes, even if it's just a season or 2 seasons, let me go there. Let me experience what it's like to play a heavy campaign where every single match matters. Because I think sometimes some teams get comfortable where you say, okay, we're not fighting for relegation, but we're also not in a title race. So once you become that middle part of the table, all of a sudden you get to relax and you don't fight for things the way you used to. But at Sundowns, because there's so many quality players, every match is important. You're only as good as your last performance. So all of those players will be wanting to do their best.
You have to live the Sundowns lifestyle, as Pitso Msimane likes to say. And now looking ahead at the ABSA Premiership, it's due to return on the 16th of August. It's a mouth-watering lineup that's coming up. But before we look at that, local football is mourning after a soldier of the stands passed away this week, Mandla Mgijimi Sindane.
Yeah, I think we always speak about the return of local football and wanting to see our favorite players. But once again, we kind of reminded why the game has been on pause for so long. The fact that we have got this invisible virus that is floating about that we do not know how to handle. And even though you get excited about the return of the game, you're reminded about how fragile life is, because it's the only thing that we have at the moment. And I remember speaking to Coach Rulani Mukwena, who's now back at Sundowns as an assistant, where he had said, of the most important things in life, football is the least important, because if you're living, you can enjoy the sport, but if you're dead, there's nothing to enjoy. And for him, I think his death was just a reminder of the fact that right now we are dealing with an issue that is very serious. It's nothing to play about. We constantly hear about the conspiracy theories, but for every face that we get to put behind a death, for every face that we have for a statistic, we're reminded about the fact that, guys, yes, it's nice to watch 11 men chase a ball around the pitch and then one of them will win a trophy. But if we're not living, none of that matters. And Mama Joy, she also came out to pay tribute to her fellow fallen Buccaneer, someone who also just recovered from COVID. So I think that for her will hit her especially hard, where you go, I've recovered, but what was he not able to achieve in order for him to get to that point where he can watch his team get back on the field?
Mgijimi was famous for his white overalls with his face covered in white powder, and during games he would also puff that white powder in the stadium. He will be sorely missed, and I feel like the game is not going to be the same without him. So sincere condolences to his family and his friends and to the Orlando Pirates family.
Absolutely. And I think we always reminded, we call them like the top one supporters, the likes of Mama Joy, the likes of Saddam, the ones who spend their hard-earned money following their teams around the country, being there to support them every moment. I think we all remember that SuperSport ad where SuperSport had dedicated time to actually celebrate these number one supporters and all they did. And unfortunately for him, he won't be able to enjoy many more days, whether it be at Orlando Stadium, FNB. He'll miss the derbies. But I think the club, Orlando Pirates themselves, paid special tribute to him with a video on their social media where he was there with the bones celebrating his team every time. And long may those moments continue for the club as they honor his memory.
Yeah. We now move on to Cricket South Africa. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start the mess at Cricket South Africa. So I saw a headline, Cricket South Africa director Graham Smith said that the governing body is struggling to move forward due to a lack of trust and a sense of chaos. How do we even unpack this?
I think there are so many issues when it comes to Cricket South Africa, because we've got the boardroom issues, which are of course around allegations of misconduct in relation to suspended CEO Thabang Moerwe. We're still not completely sure what those allegations are based on. He's been suspended since December. When I was at the press conference on the 10th of December, if I remember correctly, President Chris Nenzani said that investigation would take no longer than 6 months, into the 8th month of the year, and we still don't know whether he'll be dismissed from his position, whether he'll stay on, what has gone wrong with Thabang Moerwe. But CSA are always quick to remind us to say the report into his allegations is they're steamrolling it and trying to get a finalization to that situation. So we hope, whether it's in the next few days or the next few weeks, there can be some sort of resolution. Because I feel as long as that situation hovers over their head, it's very hard for them to make any plans about the future and to plan ahead, because we know that interim CEO, Dr. Jacques Faul, his period in charge of the organization ends on the 15th of September. So time is really running out for CSA to make decisions about what goes on. Do they bring Thabang Moerwe on board? If he comes back, is there enough trust, whether it's from his side to the board or the board in him? So those will also be issues that they have to deal with. And of course, the elephant in the room has been Black Lives Matter and the racist incidents that former players are saying they've experienced, whether it be at franchise level or within the Protea setup. And I think the Protea setup is perhaps the one that is most concerning, because if you're any sportsman, you always look at the national team and you say, you know what, if I work hard and I get into the national side, everything else is worth it. But when you get there and you're still dealing with the racism that you encounter on an everyday level, you realize that the fight is still very long and very hard to get through. And I think we all listened to that Makhaya Ntini interview where we're going, even you, with all your talent, with everything that you meant for this country, even you were not above experiencing the kind of racism, the kind of exclusion, the kind of feeling unworthiness that everyday people get to experience. And I remember having a conversation with another journalist where I was saying that when it comes to the Makhaya story, it's very much twofold in the fact that he experienced racism, but also he realized that he couldn't just quit the national team and go back to living whatever life he lived before. He realized just how important he was to the next Black kid to come up through the system. So in a sense, he had to endure for the greater good of what his role within that national team stood for.
I like what you said, that is so important, because representation and seeing someone who looks like you, it says to you that it's possible. So a lot of people who have come before us, and I'm also going to refer to our industry, the broadcasting, the sports broadcasting industry. A lot of women before us had to go through challenges like just being seen as eye candy before they can actually be taken seriously seriously and actually be listened to. They had to go through those challenges so that it could be a little bit better for us. And I saw that this week CSA announced its Cricket for Social Justice and National Building project, trying to address those issues of transformation. So, we'll see what will come out of that.
Yes, we definitely will. And I think Graham Smith, he also had to kind of come out this week against allegations that, hey, you got a jobs for pals, because he's currently the director of cricket. Then people are saying, when you became director of cricket, all of a sudden your friends within the Proteas setup got involved, whether that was Mark Boucher being appointed Proteas head coach, Charles Langeveld coming into the system, Jacques Callis coming in as a consult, and then Paul Harris also coming through as a consult as well within that setup. So there are questions about if the likes of Graham Smith are considered qualified enough to get those roles. What about the other black guys that are within the system? Or is the system so set up for them that they have to jump through hoops? And when I think of that, I refer to what you're saying when it comes to women in this industry, where me and a fellow male will be interested in a certain sport and will cover a certain sport. But in order for me to prove my legitimacy in that sport, I have to have twice the knowledge of things that he probably doesn't even have to think about, where people always go, so how do you explain the offside rule, or who won the FA Cup in 1976? Those are things that are not asked of our fellow male colleagues. So in a way, it is so multi-layered. Oppression, racism is so multi-layered, because it's not so simple as just saying the K word or saying the N word. There is overt ways of installing it in people and having people experiencing it. And also sometimes I think when you are the victim of it, you question if you're being oversensitive about things, even though you may see them a certain way.
I couldn't have said it better. Tholakele Mganga, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on our very first episode of Sport is Female. Here is to continuing to, shatter those glass ceilings and to flourishing as women within the industry.
Absolutely. And in the words of Miss Universe, to taking up space.
Let's take up that space. Thank you, Tola.
Thank you.
My very first guest on Sport is Female has me beaming with pride to raise my South African flag. She's the Women's African Coach of the Year. She won the COSAFA Women's Championship 3 times as a coach. She also won the award as a player. She's spiritual, tenacious, and she's passionate. Welcome to South Africa's national football team coach, Desiree Ellis. Desiree, thank you so much for joining us on our very first episode of Sport is Female.
Hi, Refilwe. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for the kind words. I hope everyone is taking care and that everyone is safe. So I think that's the most important thing at this present moment.
Absolutely, Coach. And in my introduction of you, I mentioned that you are spiritual. I've seen on some of your social media posts where you thank God for safe travels, for example. What role does God and spirituality play in your life?
The most important thing, because we've got to have faith. God is our rock. It's who we turn to in times of anything. We have my mother's a big prayer warrior, and you have other leaders in the church as well who stand in the gap. But ultimately, God is the one we turn to.
Absolutely, especially in these unprecedented times, especially in these COVID-19 times where people are losing their jobs, people are dying. So we really need to turn to faith.
No, most definitely. I stay in contact with all the players in the national team who have a core group, so we divide the group in 3, myself, Coach Tina Sonke, and then Coach Shalene. And we try to give interaction, one-on-one. But I pray for each and every one and for their families that they are safe. And okay, for my immediate family and the country and the whole world at large, because I think prayers now is key, is the most important thing. This is bigger than all of us. I think we need God to intervene. It's bigger than everyone, and no one is discriminated against. Each and every person out there. I just heard this morning that my uncle's, my late uncle's wife, and his sister-in-law passed on. His sister-in-law passed on of COVID.
I'm so sorry
So
about
it's
that.
it's just everyone. So all we can do is be as careful as possible. But I do say, we have to adhere to regulations. The government is the authority at the moment, and if they're saying wear a mask, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're protecting the next individual, and that's what it's about now.
And people can't seem to stop saying we're living in unprecedented times. It's in emails, it's in text messages, it's in the news. So dare I say, what have you been up to during these unprecedented COVID times?
Look, one of the things is staying in touch with all the players, both locally and abroad, sending out daily training programs, staying in touch with the staff, because each and every one is a different challenge, and it challenges them differently, both physically, mentally, and financially. Staying in touch with people, doing online courses and doing webinars and all of that. And besides that as well, I'm busy with a project in my community through the Desiree Ellis Foundation, making sure that, people don't go to bed hungry. And I pray that everyone has a roof over their head, which in this time is extremely difficult. And through the Desiree Ellis Foundation and in partnership with an organization in Hanover Park, where I'm from, the Ricardo Alcado and the Alcado Andrews Foundation, we're trying to feed as many people as possible, and whoever I can help, I have friends that have soup kitchens and feeding schemes in other parts of the Western Cape, where we try to assist where we can, because, I believe we're not on earth just to be, but on earth to make a difference. And no matter how small the contribution may be, it's a big help to someone else.
And Coach, talking about, helping other people where we can, you just spoke about the Desiree Ellis Foundation. Please tell us more about that and the work that is involved there.
Look, due to the COVID-19, we haven't had a time to launch or anything, but we can't wait for launches to happen. We got to do the work. So
Absolutely.
through, Balls and Books, an organization in the Netherlands that stemmed from another organization that I worked with, Stars in the Eyes, are assisting, giving a weekly vegetable pickup for Hanover Park. And then through other organizations, I assist where I can, to friends who have, soup kitchens in Atlantis, Riverlands, Mitchell's Plain, Lavendale, and wherever else I can assist. But that is just the start. It's a broader picture. A lot of foundations help young kids. I want to do the same, but I also want to, because I'm a coach and I know, the challenges coaches face. Hopefully in the not too distant future, I'll be able to assist coaches where I can. But it's just the motto is just to make other stars, and a star is not just a football player.
Sure.
But it's just a star is somebody who rises above their circumstances, who rises above everything else. When people are saying that you cannot do it, or you cannot make it, or you cannot achieve, that is a star. So I come from a gang-infested area, Hanover Park, and it drove me to greater heights. And I want to just show people that it doesn't matter where you come from. If you have a dream and you have support, and I want to be that support, hopefully in the not too distant future. I want to be that support where, players, people can realize their dreams. So it's not just about football, but obviously we want to use football as a tool to change lives.
And Coach, I'm now going to come to that point where you talk about where you grew up. You successfully got Banyana Banyana to their first ever FIFA Women's World Cup, and we'll get to that in a bit. But you've also played football where you were captain, you scored your hat trick in your first, your debut, Banyana. So, Coach, tell us where and when football first began for you.
I think I was about 6 years old. Uh, we lived in Heidelberg, and my parents worked in the city of Cape Town. So in the afternoon, we went to school in Salt River. My grandmother lived in Salt River. So in the afternoon, we would play with my cousins, who were mostly boys, and not just only football. We play marbles and you name it, whatever games the boys played. And I would regularly also play with the boys at school, even though I was not supposed to, because we had a girls' playground and a boys' playground. So I would jump over the fence
And did the
because
boys,
I played.
sorry, I was going to say, did the boys treat you differently?
No, they didn't. If I had to be tackled, I needed to be tackled because, still now, no boy wants to be outshone by a girl, So, so in the afternoon, I would rush home or they're already waiting at my granny's place to play the game. Because we never had no girls football at school, I would regularly play for the teachers against the boys team. So that was my one highlight of the year, playing against the school team, which was boys, in the teachers team. And then at the age of 15, I joined the girls club. I didn't know there was one. I joined the girls club, and then my father got involved with the club when the club was about to fold, and my sisters all played. And then at the very young age of 30, I got opportunity to try it for the national team.
Wow.
And as they say, the rest is history.
So you come from a football family. So because I heard you just say your sisters were also playing football. Was it an important part of your family?
Well, they were forced to play, though, because my dad took over the club that I joined. The club that I joined was about to fold, and my dad and my mom took over the club. And then my three sisters, my one sister had since passed on in 2010, but my three sisters, they were all forced to play. They were all forced to play. I have a brother too, who also played football, when he was younger. So my dad was a football player. So it was a family-run club until that club eventually folded.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Coach Desiree, after you retired from playing professional football, you didn't go straight into coaching Banyana. You had an administration role in various areas, and also I see here that you're a picture editor for Gallo Images. That is quite interesting, and it's different from football. How did that role come about?
Look, when I tried out first for the national team, was way back in the early 90s, and I tried out and I worked at the meat market, and I lost my job because we came back a day late. We got a puncture along the way. Those days we traveled in a minibus, by the way. So after the excitement and the euphoria of winning 14-0, scoring a hat-trick on debut, we're now back on our way back to Cape Town, and we get a puncture, and I get back to work late, and I get fired. So yeah, I'm out of work for 3 years, sitting at home doing nothing, not being able to get a job. So doing door-to-door sales. I know the door-to-door sales story. So I worked in the Noordhoek area, which houses are very far apart, and would walk the whole day, make sure that I had my taxi fare back home because you didn't always sell anything. I worked in a bakery where they sell food, where they weigh the food. I've worked there as well. So I've tried everything. And then I got a call from Mark Leeson, who was then the editor of Kickoff, and he asked me if I didn't want to come and, answer his fan mail. And I went in and he paid me per letter. And he said I could work flexi time. And I said, oh, well, I haven't worked for 3 years, so I'll just work the whole day. And then I worked in the subscription department. It was a company called Touchline Media then. And then packed the subscription gifts and would then run to Cape Town Station, take a train or take a taxi, and then run from Hanover Park Terminus home. So that was my daily routine until one day Jerome McCarthy was working in the photo agency, and he was about to move to another club, and I got offered the job, and I then became a assistant picture editor, and I got offered the job. And because I knew sports, not just football, I think that helped me in my job, because people would come in and request stuff, and something would happen, and people would come in and request. And one day, I remember Edward Griffith came in for a picture, and he wanted some picture of some girl some gymnasts, and then I went all, and I said, oh, you're looking for that picture of that gymnast, of that? Okay, yeah, a couple of pictures. And he was quite amazed, but it's like everything I do, you got to do it well. You got to have a passion for what you do. And then I got appointed the ambassador for the 2010 FIFA World Cup in 2007. So I worked for that company straight from school practically. I got appointed ambassador for the World Cup, and obviously it's a full-time job, and I had to leave my work. And that was the most joyous time for me, being able to travel not only in South Africa, but in the rest of Africa, promoting the World Cup.
Yeah.
And the picture editor was just Lefty Shivambu, the famous photographer.
Yes.
Dave Toyo had since passed on. I worked with him. So yes, I worked with him as the assistant picture editor. And it was really, really exciting, an exciting time. But when something else comes along, God opens up doors for you that you can't imagine. But when He opens up, you've got to step inside. And that's one of the doors God opened up then. And it was just, amazing to be able to travel around, to go to any game you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Go to the World Cup, and then at that time I also worked for SABC doing World Cup matches and everything else. And then when the World Cup was over, I needed to decide, do I go back into corporate? Because now I've been out in the field. I also worked for an organization called Stars in the Eyes, who use football through the Dutch Football Association, where we educated community people, not just football coaches, but community people with life skills in football, so that they could go back into their communities and help their communities. So I was busy with that. And then Vera Pauw came along, and I became one of her assistants in 2014, and then the acting coach, and then the head coach. And then the World Cup.
And the rest, they say, is history.
Yes.
That, I love what you say about being passionate about what you do. Like everything that you do, you need to put in 100%. And now we're going to just move back to the football. So you've dabbled in coaching in the Sasol Women's League, and then your big break came in 2016 when you were appointed interim coach for Banyana Banyana.
Well, the big break was actually 2014, by the way.
2014.
When I became the assistant coach. Now people forget that short little stint. People forget.
And that is so important, because then you move from that, you learn from being an assistant coach, and then you move your way up. And so with all the successes that the team has enjoyed, together with the challenges along the way, what does a typical day before COVID-19 in the life of Coach Desiree Ellis look like?
Well, if we're in camp, we would sit in if we're training in the afternoon, the technical team would sit together and we'd work out the training session together. If training is in the morning, we do that the night before. We then have go to breakfast, say our prayer before breakfast, then have breakfast, then go back, pack to go to training, do the training, come back, get the footage from the performance analyst, have a look at it. If there's anything that I need to discuss with players or so forth, we then discuss. And we then also in that time look at footage of the opponents we're going to play against, call players in to individually sit with players along with the assistant coach, Tina Sonke, etc. And then we have a video session the evening where we either show the game or part of the game, or towards the end of the week where we really dissect it, where we go into how the team attack, how the team defend, how do they do set pieces, who the key players are, how do they transition, is there something that they consistently do the same, is there a trend, the way they take their free kicks, is it always play to one individual, etc., who the headers are, all of those things, and we give that information to the players. And during the week we will have one team playing like our team, and the other team playing like the opponents, until we get ready for match day. If we are preparing to go into camp, it's about obviously selecting the squad in advance. It's about putting a schedule out there, what we do every single day. For example, breakfast that time, meeting that time, lunch that time, training that time, supper that time, video time, devotion time. All of that is in the plan until the day we leave. And so we plan all of those things prior to that. So planning before a game is maybe 3 weeks before the time, where you're already putting everything into place, looking at the opponent, making notes, doing the reports, and along with the analyst, of course, because the analyst sets everything up.
Yeah, shucks. That sounds like a lot of hard work goes into it. And obviously that hard work paid off when Banyana made history in 2019 on their first ever World Cup. And congratulations, Coach, for that. I think we need to celebrate that because that is such a big deal. It was such a joyous moment to experience. I mean, I have so many memories of it. But for you, what was your most memorable moment during the tournament?
Look, I have to go back first. I have to go back to when we qualified. You cannot forget those moments. You cannot forget the preparation that was put into that, leading up to that, the sacrifices by the players, the work behind the scenes from the staff. Because we're in team sport, the success is not ours alone. The success even goes right down to the coaches on the ground who are busy, preparing players to come into camp. The success goes there. The success goes, I think, even as far back as Coach Joseph Nkonza, who was the first coach who took us to a big tournament, the Olympics 2012. Then Coach Vera came along, went to Rio 2016. So those building blocks by the previous coaches and players, you cannot ignore that, because Banyana didn't start when I came along. It was what was there before I came. But each one plays its part. So when it's our success, it's their success as well. And I always say to the coaches when I chat to them that they mustn't forget their contribution, because their contribution is immense. We wouldn't be where we are because if they didn't do their job. And the awards that we win, it's not because of me, but it's because of everybody that puts their piece together. You work with a fantastic technical team, a medical team, even the kit manager, the bus driver, they all play their part. And then obviously the players, So I just think when we walked out, the first game, and you look across and you see the flag, I think that was a surreal moment, because you know that you qualified for the World Cup, and that was really it. It was we one of 24 countries in the world, out of over 200 federations that are there at the World Cup. And when we sang the national anthem, when I looked across at the players while I was singing it, it was very emotional for everyone, including me. But I just prayed that, the occasion didn't overwhelm them. And unfortunately, we didn't get the result we wanted, especially in the first game. But I felt that the players were absolutely outstanding. They gave it their all. And that's all you can. And that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. Plans didn't go. It didn't go according to plan. But sometimes things don't go according to plan, and sometimes God says, "No, it's not the time." But the time will come. The time will come. Give people a taste, and the time will come.
I agree. And as much as, the year 2020 seems like it's a script from a horror movie, 2020 has also been a landmark year for South African women's football. The likes of Captain Janine van Wyk, Nothando Vilakazi, and Amanda Mthandi signing with various clubs overseas. With the increase of Banyana players securing places in international leagues, what kind of impact do you think this will have on the growth of football locally?
Look, before I even answer that, I just forgot to say, under 17s qualifying for the World Cup with Coach Simpiwe Dludlu, I think they put immense pressure on us. They said to the big sisters, go and qualify, you have to qualify. And a big congratulations to them as well. But players going abroad is just incredible, Within 2 weeks we had 6. Now this past weekend we had another 2, Lebogang Ramalepe and Lebogang Ramalepe and Rhoda Mulautsi. So you're almost afraid to blink. And you feel that if you wake up in the morning that there's another person. So I'm really excited and really looking forward to that. And some of them have gone to really, really top leagues. Spain, Portugal, Sweden. it really augurs well for the national team. And I think the experience that they gain there, we always say players must train every day at a high level and play every week. And that's exactly what they're going to bring to the national team.
And women's football in the country is still not as professional as it should be. We are grateful that, last year the National Women's League was formalized. However, more needs to be done. So what more do you think South Africans can do to further support women's football?
Look, women's football has one sponsor, Cecil, and we're always urging more to come on board, because with more sponsors, we can do so much more.
Absolutely.
The National League is not where we want to be, but it's a step in the right direction. And obviously, with any new thing that happens, there's always challenges along the way. There's always stuff you don't anticipate going wrong, etc. But I think we can learn from the first year and make sure it doesn't happen again in the next year. But we desperately need a sponsor for our National League. To take it to another level, but we also need sponsors to come on board to support our junior national teams and maybe junior leagues, because as well as Banyana did, as well as the under 17s did, there's got to be a continuous pipeline that comes through. And if we can, start at grassroots level and really put things in place and really get sponsors and, get more coaches involved. And, we make no mistake, there's a lot of talent in this country, but it's got to be nurtured properly. And the coaches out there on the ground, they play an immense role. And, a big thank you to them so far, but the work hasn't stopped. The work has got to continue. And hopefully we together, we can take South African football to the next level. The Champions League is coming. That's really exciting news.
Yes.
And hopefully, that can, now clubs will start getting their house in order and work even harder and even better, because who doesn't want to go and represent a continent, as a South African representative. And congratulations to Mamelodi Sundowns. And hopefully, through this, our not just our football in South Africa, but the whole continent can grow.
And I mean, for a young woman, a girl watching that, seeing the strides being made, it's quite inspiring. But, as women, we still have to work extra hard to prove ourselves because of the gender equalities that exist globally. If there's a young Desiree Ellis out there who's listening, and they're thinking, shucks, I would like to be there one day. I'd like to play football for my country, or maybe I'd like to coach one day. What advice would you give them?
Look, I wouldn't say next Desiree Ellis, but you've got to be your own person, because you're the next whoever, I had great support. My late father, my mother was a bit skeptical in me playing football, but my father, he supported me all the way. He was my biggest critic, by the way. I would cry at night if I played and he wasn't happy. But next day I would go out and try more and try better.
Yeah.
So I had great support, and there's many kids that don't have that support. So for me, that is key, to get the support. But I would say pursue your dream. Get a mentor, pursue your dream, because you never know where it's going to take you. And I was unfortunate enough to be able to study. My sister got a bursary. When I played in the national team, 90% of the players were unemployed. Now 90% have degrees, and that's all through sport. So the opportunity maybe to play professional football in the country is not there yet, but it also gives you an opportunity to study through the bursaries that come through the universities. So it's important that you also look for life after football, but pursue your dream with everything that you have. Give it the best that you can, because you never know who's watching. And make sure that when you get the opportunity that you embrace it, because you're part of a privileged few. I'm blessed to be part of a privileged few, because there could be other people standing in my shoes, and I will never take something like that for granted, because we know in sport, you get an injury, you stop playing, somebody else comes in, or you have a bad game, somebody else comes in. So embrace it and make sure that you work as hard as you can each and every day, and to be better each and every day.
Couldn't have said it better. And here on Sport is Female, we are all about celebrating women and those who have contributed to sport in various ways. So who would you say had the biggest role to play in your career?
Look, I thank God for the opportunity. But I would have to say my late father.
Mm.
Nowadays when you speak to young players, their role models are current players in the national team, the Mamela Bakabanis, the Fiwe Jan, Janine van Dijk, even Amanda Dlamini and Portia Modisi. We never had those role models. Actually, I looked up to the likes of the late Shoes Mashoyo, Dr. Khumalo. And I'm a very big Man United supporter, so it would be Ryan.
Go Reds.
It would be it would be Ryan Giggs and Brian Robson. Those are the people I looked up to. But I had a lot of coaches along the way that really, assisted me along the way and pushed me along the way. And you cannot pinpoint one individual because each and every one played a different role or pushed me to the next level in a different level.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you on our very first episode of Sport is Female. Banyana Banyana Coach Desiree Ellis, thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much. I just want to say one last thing, that we as women should celebrate each other more. We as women should support each other more, and then you'll see the growth of women in sport.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Coach. Have a beautiful day further. And please do keep us posted on the Desiree Ellis Foundation.
Thank you. I will do that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right, and that was Banyana Banyana coach Desiree Ellis. Such an inspiring story that she had to share, don't you agree? It's so interesting. It's always so interesting to learn more about your sporting heroes. So, yeah, I had quite a good time there talking to our coach. All right, we now move on to my comment on the big sports story of the week. Now, local football is mourning after a soldier of the stands passed away this week. I'm talking about Mandla Mgijimi Sindane. He was an Orlando Pirates super fan, and I'm sure you've seen him before. You've seen him on TV, you've seen him on the stands, and he was famous for his white overalls with his face covered in white, and most of the time he would also blow that white powder out. It was a way to intimidate the other team, but he was a real super fan. And for me, it's so important that we also celebrate our fans, because every sport has a fan, whether it's tennis, football, cricket, rugby. It's the fans. It's the fans that also bring that sport to life. They are there in the stands. They are either sitting at home on their couch or listening on the radio, and they are basically cheering their team on. And, with people like Mgijimi, that's exactly what football was for him. It was his entire life. And he would take time out of his life to go and support his club, Orlando Pirates. He would go all over the country with them. Whether he was given the opportunity, he would be there. You could count on him. And so, for me, I would say my deepest condolences to his family and his friends and the Orlando Pirates family. We've seen tributes coming from Orlando Pirates media officer Tandimi Rafe. Orlando Pirates legend Edward Motale was also expressing his condolences. I read somewhere that he was actually shocked that someone like Mgijimi could put, because he thought it was paint on his face. And he said, is that safe? I mean, this guy is an Orlando Pirates extremist. Why would you put paint on your face? Is that safe for your health? But, he found out that it's actually powder that he put on his face. We've had the likes of Mamelodi Sundowns coach Pitso Mosimane also pouring in his tributes. Football and Orlando Pirates, those Orlando Pirates grandstands will not be the same without Mgijimi. So rest in peace to our fallen soldier. And what we can take away from that is that life is so precious. So, guard your life where you can. And my condolences to Mgijimi's family and friends. All right. I also have a question for you guys. And my question for the week is about the FA Cup. Now, Arsenal have won the FA Cup. They were playing against Chelsea and they beat Chelsea 2-1. How many times have Arsenal been crowned FA Cup champions? You can answer that question on our social media platforms at @SportIsFemale. Don't forget to use the hashtag #SportIsFemale. Here on Sport is Female, we truly appreciate our guests, our listeners, and our fans because you make the podcast what it is. We're a team. Remember that. We're a team. We're in this together. So not only do we celebrate our female athletes, but we also celebrate you. The guests, the fans. So a big shout out to Buhle Madulini, to @I'm_Elsie, to Stefan 2001, to @Lauren Moore 69. Thank you so much for your contributions, for your feedback, and for basically interacting with us, for using that hashtag @SportIsFemale, for continuing to follow us and support us. We really, really appreciate you. Don't forget to check us out on our website, www.sportisfemale.com. Go on to our website. We always have interesting things for you there, interesting content that you can share. You can share it on social media with your friends and family, and you can share it on WhatsApp. You can share those links. You can also find us on YouTube @SportIsFemale. Hit the like button and subscribe. That way, when you subscribe, you get the latest. You're the first person, you're basically front row, and you're getting the latest content from Sport is Female. So don't forget, those are the handles. That's where you can catch us. That's our website, on YouTube, and on the various social media platforms. All right, and that is it from me, your host, Refilwe. I hope to see you and to hear you and to see your comments next time on Sport is Female.